Go ahead, it's recording.
Welcome to, it's February 8th, 2022, and this is the Bicycle Advisory Committee Engineering Subcommittee. And I want to read this quick message for your notice. This meeting may involve the remote participation by members either by telephone or other electronic means due to the local public health emergency, novel coronavirus pandemic, pursuant to the provisions of Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. All right. So we have kind of not a full, but we do have agenda item. It looks like we have looks like 4 or 5. 5. All right, and our first one is going to be High Lake. Is Kelsey here?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi, Kelsey. Can you give me a moment? I got to change my screen here a little bit. All right. Do you need any help with videos or anything? Are you set to go?
I don't think so. Jason, I think you have the presentation. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Screen.
Joe, go for it.
All right. Well, maybe just a quick introduction for those that don't know me. I'm Kelsey Fote. I'm a transportation planner with the city of Minneapolis. I have a couple partner agencies on the line that are also working on the High Lake project. Jason, Aaron, and Stephanie. I don't know if you want to give a quick hi.
I'll go last.
Oh, and Lisa.
I guess I'll go first. Aaron Tagg with MnDOT. I am a West Area engineer. Help oversee projects in Hennepin County, and am the MnDOT project manager for the High Lake interchange. Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Yep. I can go next. I am also with MnDOT, and I work in the Center for Community Connections, and the office I work in looks at non-highway uses of transportation right away. So I'll be looking at the uses under the bridge that we come up with on this project.
And my name is Stephanie Devitt, SDK Communications, working with Hennepin County and the full team on supporting public engagement on this project.
And I am Jason Stabell with Hennepin County, project manager for the county. So this is a multi-agency project. I don't think anyone from Metro Transit is on right now, but they're also involved. So the multi-agency part of it is the High Lake interchange is being designed and then constructed by MnDOT. Hennepin County is the owner of Lake Street, so we are taking the lead on the outreach for the project. And this is all in the city of Minneapolis, so they're a very important partner in this. And then Metro Transit has the light rail that goes parallel to Hiawatha, and then the future B line that will be on Lake Street. So we just need a federal government agency, and we got everybody. So, so for those who are familiar, this is in the Hiawatha Lake area in Minneapolis. So let me get going. So as I said, the partners are Hennepin, MnDOT, Minneapolis, and Metro Transit. So our goal with this project is to reflect public's priorities for the High Lake intersection, a safe area that supports a connected community and a climate-friendly transportation. So what we're at now was built off of some previous engagement that looked at this interchange area to see how it could be more friendly for all modes of transportation. It's very much set up for your vehicular movements at this point. So how do we improve this this interchange? So there's phase 1 and phase 2 that ended up in 2019. So some context, this is kind of at the corner of a couple different neighborhoods, Longfellow, East Phillips, and Corcoran. And then, so there's also little micro communities within all these neighborhoods. And so there's a lot of destinations for people in these neighborhoods throughout this area and for people in more Minneapolis and into the suburbs. So some demographics of the area. It's a fairly evenly populated neighborhoods. Different levels of people of color and home ownerships are between the 30 and 60% range. And we have some more demographics here about, number of people of color, non-English speakers, people with a disability, households making less than 35,000, and then cost burden rental households. So there are significant percentages for all these items in this area. So kind of give an overview of the area again. So there's Target in the northeast quadrant. There's the Hennepin Healthcare and YWCA in the southwest quadrant, including the South Hennepin County Human Service Center. There's the High Lake Shopping Center that's to the northwest, which includes some apartment buildings and some grocery stores. And then there's the Lift Garage for just for reference, and there's the new Raising Cane's right there too. So this has a very diverse amount of different people trying to access services. We have a lot of walking and biking, transit, and vehicles. So high levels on all those items. And so it's, as we all know, this is a community that's rebuilding. And so we're trying to be very sensitive to that when we're doing our outreach here. So the path forward, we kind of talked about the studies, and now we're kind of getting into designing the space under the bridge. We'll get into the details here a little bit more, but that's in 2021, 2022 years. What does this space look like once we've reconstructed the interchange? And then in 2024 is where construction would start. Late 2023 to into 2024 is when construction would start. So looking at the intersection redesign, this is the current single point top-down view. We've digitally removed the bridges so you can see Lake Street below. It's a single point interchange, so everything comes to one point. As you can see, a lot of different ways for vehicle traffic to take high-speed turns. And a little different, the pedestrian realm is not ideal in this situation. So the future is a tight diamond design. So it's your more traditional tight diamond layout where you have signal on each side of the bridge where cars come to traffic signals on each ramp. So north is up, and so what you see here is kind of what the road will look like in the future when we get rid of the single point. I'll highlight this more as we get more into it, but the yellow area is now the area under the bridge that is pedestrian realm and would not have any vehicle access to it. So then we kind of show where the Metro Transit B-line stations are, those two T's that are on the left side of the screen. Then the orange that's coming down the one ramp there is a trail bike connection we're making to the north, 28th. This will kind of continue the connection there. Right now it pinches down. And this will kind of give a little bit more space so that bicycle connection can come down here to this area. So I've kind of talked about this, the changes are intended to increase safety for all forms of transportation, improve connectivity and access for people across neighborhoods, and support climate-friendly transportation. So back to this image again. We kind of talking about adding this. I've already kind of talked about this, but adding traffic signals, more traditional, helps to slow down traffic, making those left and right turns off of the freeway. And so as we move on to the next slide here, it's kind of showing where the road is, highlighted in the yellow, and you kind of have the areas where there's pockets where pedestrians would be using in the current condition. As we get into the proposed, we're scoring off those ramp connections and with decreasing the crossing distances for a pedestrian to get across those ramps. And so now you can see where the various ways you have to use to cross through this interchange, through the different type of ramps that are in there. With the proposed, it's simplified crossings and shorter distances for all. Right now, under the bridge is pretty much these odd-shaped areas that are pretty big to be under there, but they will be expanding greatly. So there are these yellow areas, and that's kind of where the focus is on our outreach. Is the minimum would be just to make this a big concrete area, but that is not going to really enhance the crossing. It would not help with issues that might be out there today. So we're kind of trying to get outreach and thoughts on what can this space be used for in the future. We're talking 75 to 50 feet wide areas on both sides. We kind of talked about, how do these fit into the goals of climate, safety, and compliance with needs of transportation. And we're trying to find that, that perfect, that area where everything can make sense, where we have some community partners committed to the space, public priorities and values are reflected, and guidelines for using space under the bridge can be met. To kind of give the extreme picture, like MnDOT would not support, not that we would do that, storing flammables under the bridge. That's not something that could be done. So that's kind of where the guidelines, that'd be the extreme example of a guideline. And so we're trying to find what can be done under that bridge. So Stephanie, who's helping with the outreach, has made this PowerPoint for us, but one thing is this kind of inspiring thoughts are some, the next couple slides will be some thoughts, but we're open to any ideas. But this is in Milwaukee. It's brightening the passage. It's using some artwork on the bridge elements and kind of making the space a little bit more personable. This is in St. Louis Park, no, in Hopkins, I'm sorry, under Highway 100. Sorry, 169. So this kind of by the 169 bridge, and there's a skate park under there. So MnDOT has a partnership with the city of Hopkins. The city of Hopkins then has a partnership with Third Layer Skate Shop. And this is just an example of some space that non-transportation use of space under in a MnDOT right away. Okay, I'm just reading some here. Tell me if any of this is pertaining to anything I should be. Okay. So some other examples are kind of a mobility hub, rideshare, lockers. The image here is not something that would necessarily be exactly what we do under the bridge, but just trying to get thoughts out there of what that area could be used for. So the engagement timeline, we have just this past week and this week kicked off our engagement. So Stephanie put in the chat there some story map. The story map that kind of goes through what I did on this PowerPoint and provides a link to the survey that we have. And so a lot of information coming out there now for the public to get back to us, and hopefully we can get some ideas on what we should do in this area. Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you hit on some key points with the engagement. The two things that are areas for people to take action is number one, there's the survey Jason mentioned. That's in the story map. We will be giving away some Target gift cards to people. We'll do drawings for a few people of those who respond to the survey just to encourage response. So feel free to share that with others. And then there's also opportunities to register for the open houses coming up at the end of the month if you know others who might want to attend.
So last thing is the website is hennepin.us High Lake. In there, there's the link to the story map that Stephanie shared in the chat. People can reach out to myself or Stephanie on outreach items, but with that, we're open to questions and comments and anything else.
Well, thank you for that presentation. Very, very good. Good slides. Anybody, any questions?
Hi, this is Cadence. I have like 5 questions. I can go through them very quickly.
Okay.
First question, I just want to know if there's like any specific targeted outreach to like Indigenous communities, whether that's like NACD or East Phillips. I think for those of us who maybe pass through here a lot, there's oftentimes people who are using this for shelter. And I think that you're going to hear a lot of feedback that any type of like hostile architecture or design is not going to be well received. So I don't know if that's something that you're incorporating into a humane redesign under the underpass that can like still meet people's needs in an informal way, like not sanctioning it, but also like not pushing people to other areas, if that makes sense. Second question, I'm just curious too with, I believe Lake Street is getting BRT, and I'm not sure if a station is planned here. I just don't know how that's going to integrate with that. Yeah, okay.
So it's right here on the west side of the interchange will be the BRT stations.
Can I ask what a BRT is?
Bus rapid transit.
Okay.
So there's a C line that's on Penn Avenue. There's the D line that's being constructed, which is Fremont Emerson, and then there's the A line, which is in St. Paul. So long story why they went A, C, D, back to B, but now they're on B. So
Right. Anybody else with any questions?
Do you want me to respond to
Sure.
the?
No, sorry, go ahead. Apologize.
should we answer your first question first?
Yeah, I was going to
Cadence?
state all of them, but go, yeah.
So I'll address the specific one on targeted outreach to the Indigenous communities. So we first presented the fact that this project was coming up to the Minneapolis Urban Indian Directors in November. And so we put this on their radar at that time and actually asked for input on recommending individuals to serve on an advisory committee that's going to help us really take in the public feedback we receive and help think through how to solve the puzzle of those 3 pillars Jason mentioned. Lisa Austin, who's on this call, also had this project presented to the tribal consultation group at MnDOT, so she could speak to that. And then East Phillips Improvement Coalition is involved with that advisory committee I had mentioned, and they're also helping us with some of that outreach locally. And then they have appointed a community member to serve on the advisory committee representing the neighborhood. She's a resident of Little Earth who teaches at Anishinaabe. So those are the touch points that we have at this point, but that is that's an important thing that you raised, so I appreciate you doing so. What were the other questions that you wanted to address?
Yeah, just from like a user perspective, I have used the West Side Hiawatha Trail quite a bit, and connecting like from 28th headed south. Like there have been times in the winter where I am carrying my bike on my shoulder and like knee deep snow. So like the west side of that connection is a little dicey, and then when you're crossing south over the intersection, it also gets a little messy with like how you're supposed to interact with people who are pedestrians on that like southwest most corner. Yeah. It gets a little tight. There's like a little bit of a weird grade sloping curve. And so like I usually try to like get into the street there. But then that also puts me like interacting with motorists. So that's just a particular corner of concern for me, just having biked there. And so I was just wondering how that would potentially be flushed out there.
Can I clarify a question? So you're coming from up here, crossing over, and you're continuing down off the screen here.
Yeah.
That's the movement. Okay. The width, the width of the trail on this side is going to be in excess of 10 feet wide. So the number of lanes on that ramp will go from, I think, 3 down to 2. So we're taking up that extra space for the trail. Haven't had much discussion about on this side of Lake Street yet on connecting that further south, but I think I can follow up with Kelsey to see what that connection. I think we're open to it. It's just knowing what we need to do there.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a long time route of mine before the trail was constructed on the east side. And I'm usually coming from west of Hiawatha, so it doesn't make sense for me to cross Hiawatha twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be on the west side. And then my last two questions. I'm just curious about the design vehicle with, so if you go back to the slide with the proposed change, I'm just curious if there's any type of like slimming up or like mountable curb for people who are walking and biking. Some of these are still kind of long crossings. And then also like if you're reducing some of the lanes, like people fly, like people who are driving like fly off of the off ramps, and I just don't want them to like get even more impatient and like cut me off if I'm walking or biking when they're trying to turn right.
So the south curb line by the Hennepin County Service Center, the BRT station is already constructed. It's already out there. It's not really being used as a BRT station. It's being used as just a regular bus stop right now. So the thought is we keep that south curb line as is through the project, and we're just pulling everything from the north to the south. So we're using 10.5-foot lanes on all the through and turning movements here. So we're narrowing down lanes, and then we're also removing a lane. There's a dedicated, I think you can see it. You kind of see this right turn lane building right there. We're removing that. And so from Hiawatha to its 22nd we're looking at like a 22, 25-foot wide sidewalk area through there. So everything's getting narrowed down. We're minimizing everything as much as possible as far as radiuses go. Interchange with MnDOT, we have some trucks that we will have to make sure can get through. So there's only so much we can get the radiuses down, but we're doing what we can to get those down. We're also looking at truck aprons to see if those make sense to even further. They look good in 2D when you look down, but when you start looking at the 3D aspect to it, they don't look as effective in 3D. So anything else to add, Aaron?
No, I think you summed that up pretty good. We've been going through a number of iterations of trying to get the radiuses tighter. So that's kind of an ongoing thing, and I think looking at the truck aprons has helped us also reduce some of the radiuses, which is probably a more preferred thing, not to have to use the truck apron and just have a good tight radius anyways. So.
Okay. Any more questions? Oh,
Just one more. I think.
Dan Miller. Dan, we can't hear you.
Sorry. I really like the presentation here. It's going in the right direction. It'd be great to see this at 15% if that's your plans. And it looks really, I remember that the last improvement here, the bridge, I remember going below the old ones. So this again is a great improvement. Thank you.
Yeah, the plan would be to come back, 15, whatever, layout with a more detailed layout. I would say that's probably in the April timeframe. So probably not in March, but April. So we'll keep working with Kelsey to get that scheduled. And I'd see Aaron probably leading that one. It'll be more of a detailed layout.
Philip?
Yeah, I really commend you on what a vast improvement. I'm thinking of times visiting a friend renting in the apartment of the northwest corner there, and it's just kind of and then taking the bus on the south side after getting off LRT. It's such a hellscape underneath. So it's a vast improvement. Certainly, this big, huge spaces. What an opportunity under the bridge, and it's not like you want to have, sit down restaurants, but God, you've got so much space. So you think, what comes to mind is sort of more light features, art, plants. The Midtown Greenway has a bike shop stop, which I'm sure we've all used. And wouldn't that be fun? Because, I'd sometimes you visit other businesses after seeing my friend in the apartments there. So, but it's not like we want to have people hanging out under the bridge, but it's so much space that it also feels like a great opportunity again for bikers, walkers, bussers to do something and enjoy what is really a little micro community. I mean, it's true. People living in those apartments, you've got the Y, you've got Target. I mean, it is a little micro community there, and strengthening it from both a social and economic point of view seems like a great opportunity. So hats off to you all.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm going to take a turn. I'm Marty Grimes. And I just want to thank you so much for reaching out to all the people in the neighborhoods that live there. It's not just one group. You're really aggressively trying to get everybody's opinion. And the second thing I was going to tell you, I think it'd be really valuable, and maybe you already thought about this, is if you could get an artist that lives in that community to come up with whatever image, it would have so much more power, or a group of people that got together and painted it, or whatever you decide to do with it, that gives it more power. And then green wise, there can't be any green stuff down there, right?
Under the bridge. Yeah, but my cursor. There's opportunities for some green space over here where the transit station is. Like I said, big sidewalk areas. We could figure out some ways to get some greening in there. But under the bridge, doesn't get much light, so hard to.
Unless you put up the fake ones, right? But who wants to do that?
Yeah.
All right, so I have a question.
Put grow lights under there, so it'd help grow, but.
So Dan, this is where I'm lost. What do you guys need from us, I guess? Dan Miller, can you help me out?
I think you're doing great, Marty, and I think that it's good to hear they're going to be back at around 15% with some more detailed information for us that we can comment on. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more hands. Thank you. Great presentation. I look forward to seeing you come back with even more things.
I was just going to say the story map is got all the information I shared with you. Has these sliders so you can easily see the difference. And then we did some virtual walkthroughs, virtual 3D models. So this is what we're showing it's pretty nice 3D model. So
yes. Oh, I see Dan Miller has a question for you.
Yeah, it's not so much a question, but I just wanted to remind the rest of the presentations and the members that we've got 4 more, and if we divide that by the next hour and a half, we'll have to limit our conversations and presentations to that amount of time. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank
you, everybody.
Thanks for saying that, Dan. I'll just reinforce that. This is Chris. if the next presentations could try and take it to 10 minutes and then a few minutes for questioning, that'd be great.
Sorry, everyone else that we went over.
You know, it was, I wasn't paying attention to the clock either. So yeah, thank you for that. All right, our next is the 2022 Vision Zero Corridors. Is that 0%? Amy, are you here, or Kristen?
Yes, I am here. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Barnsdorf. I'm an associate transportation planner with our Transportation Planning and Programming Division of Public Works. I'm one of the staff members on our Vision Zero Capital team. There are a few of us here, but I'm here today just to talk about our 2022 projects that are coming up this year, and just give an overview of the program for those who may not be familiar, where to anticipate projects this year, and then kind of what our immediate next steps are. So the Vision Zero Capital Program, this was born out of the Vision Zero Action Plan. The idea behind this capital program is to essentially make cost-effective safety improvements on our high injury streets that were identified in the Vision Zero Action Plan. These are done through a data-driven approach that is directly informed by the work that was done in that action plan. In 2022, we have just under $1.2 million for this work. The goal is really to make improvements on all city-owned high injury streets over the next few years, of which there are 24 of them. So on the map on the right-hand side, you can see here anything that is in the purple color or the darker color, those are high injury streets that do not have any proposed improvements yet, but are anticipated for the future. Anything you see in a solid blue color were improvements that were made in the last year with our Vision Zero program. Anything in the dashed blue color is what is coming up this year. There's another map later that is more clearly outlines specifically Vision Zero, but this map is our high injury street map. And then anything in the yellow color, anything solid are safety improvements that have already happened through a different capital program. Anything that is dashed are upcoming or planned safety improvements through a non-Vision Zero capital program. So as I mentioned, the improvements that are planned through the Vision Zero capital program are generally done with quick build materials such as paint and bollards, the white sticks, delineators, whatever name you want to use for them. Really the goal of these improvements are to improve the feel and the safety of these different roadways. And so within this, there are a few places where we explore upgrading to curbs where feasible, in terms of both the infrastructure piece, but also the financially being able to do that within the budget that we have for this program. So some of the potential treatments or the tools in our toolbox are outlined here. Bump outs, these are really about creating better sight lines, reducing crossing distance for pedestrians. They can also help slow vehicle turns at an intersection. High visibility crosswalks, these there's actually a study that's being done in conjunction with the U of M. We don't have the results yet, but over the last year, been testing out high-vis crosswalks at non-signalized intersections to see kind of what that yielding rate does there. That is one of the tools that we've used in various locations. Slow turn wedges, again, helping slow those vehicle turns, making it safer for people that are crossing the roadway. Delineator medians, these are both to help kind of narrow travel lanes, reduce, provide kind of like a ped refuge median in the center, providing just in safer crossing for the roadway. Hard and center lines, these are seen as on the bottom left here. These are to help slow left turning vehicles, reducing conflicts that arise between people walking and biking there. Various locations, we will do bike conflict zone striping, the green striping that you see. In select locations, we look to rapid flashing beacons, which are the overhead signals. These are generally at on-signalized intersections, mid-block crossings. And then the last piece of this is retroreflective backplates, which essentially just make it easier to see the signals at night specifically. So in terms of specific projects related to the Vision Zero capital program, you may remember we were here last year. There was 4 corridors that were anticipated to be installed in 2021. However, given the existing kind of material shortages with the supply chain, we were unable to get the necessary materials by the end of last year to install them. So those projects, the top 4 listed here, Dowling, Monroe, 36th and 42nd, those will be going in spring of this year. Those are ready to go, ready to be installed as soon as the weather permits. And then for the 2022 corridors, which we are currently working on the designs for those, there are a total of 8 of them listed here. 31st Street between Nicollet Avenue and Cedar in South Minneapolis. 6th Street and 7th Street downtown between 2nd Avenue and Chicago for 6th Street, and then between 2nd Avenue and 11th Avenue on 7th Street. We also have North 2nd Avenue on the edge of downtown between Washington and 5th Street. Nicollet Avenue from Lake Street to 46th in South Minneapolis. East 35th Street between Nicollet and Hiawatha. Fremont Avenue in North Minneapolis between Lowry and 44th Avenue North, and then the intersection of Lyndale Avenue and Franklin. So those are all anticipated projects for this year. These will likely be happening summer or fall implementation. And again, these types of improvements would be kind of pulling from that toolbox from what we in the last slide. In terms of timeline, just some history of kind of when this program came to be. The Vision Zero Action Plan identified the high injury streets in 2018. This capital program was established in 2020. In this year, these coming months, we are beginning to do our engagement with community members and stakeholders along Vision Zero corridors. There was a ton of engagement that was done as part of the Vision Zero Action Plan, and since this is a very data-driven approach, our work is, or our engagement process is more of a informing people of the improvements that are coming. I will note that we do have an interactive map set up where people can provide feedback on high injury streets, if any traffic safety concerns or comments that people want to leave, and I can send the link to you all or have Chris send it out as well. But in terms of the timeline, we're starting that engagement process. We will be implementing the postponed 2021 projects as soon as possible this spring in 2022, and then the 2022 projects to follow in summer of this year. And then moving on to future years, again, our goal is to make safety improvements on all of our city-owned high injury streets as quickly as possible. A lot of this is repetitive. Again, we are developing those concept designs and beginning that engagement. We are continuing to do coordination with intersecting and overlapping different capital projects and partners. Some of these roadways intersect with county streets or MnDOT right-of-way. So coordinating with them where needed. And yes, installation this spring and summer. So thank you. Happy to take any questions or comments that people have on these projects.
Well, thank you, because I was just going to say time.
Sorry, a little long-winded there.
Anyone, any questions? Aaron.
Hey, yeah, this all looks really exciting. So many changes. So thank you for that. I had one question. Looking at the 42nd Street plan, it looks like a lot of great improvements from Nicollet East. I had one suggestion because I personally experience it by bike or on foot pretty frequently. is at the intersection, and I'm sure you all have probably heard about some issues with this, but 42nd Street and Wentworth Avenue has a stop sign for folks going east-west on 42nd, but it's no stop sign for people going north-south on Wentworth. And because of the fact that 42nd kind of is a de facto like commuter route, kind of cross-city route, people tend to not stop at that stop sign at 42nd and Wentworth. And it's kind of a known issue. You see it show up on Nextdoor every other week and on the Facebook group for the Kingfield neighborhood every other week, talking about how people need to stop, blah, blah, blah. But I'm curious if maybe for pedestrian safety, at least at that intersection, and that might actually help people stop, as if there were to be bump outs for pedestrians crossing 42nd. I don't know that they're needed on Wentworth, but maybe like for folks crossing north or south, that could be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Dan. Oh, first of all, would you like to reply to that?
I'll just say we can take a look at it. 42nd, those plans are kind of finalized and already bid out for that work, but
that's what I figured.
We can definitely we can look at it and see if there are any other improvements that maybe we could add in for this year.
That would be great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Dan Miller.
Yes, hello. I've got a two-part question. The first is there a life cycle to this program? In other words, how long are these things going to be? How long are you going to have them up?
In terms of the actual treatments being up?
Yep.
I would say there's not a specific time frame when these will be taken down. I think the goal is really putting these in not as temporary treatments, but more as long-term solutions to help improve safety until we're able to get out there with kind of those curb improvements.
Yeah. I just noticed a number of these places that go up with these that with the bollard treatment, they get beat up by people that are confused by them and whatever. And it seems to take an inordinate amount of time to get replaced. You know, it's pretty much if you call 311 or get on it. So that's a concern as we're moving forward, that we have some kind of eye on these improvements. So they, you know, because if you have half the bollards up, it's not as effective, right? And the second question regarded engagement and community and stakeholders. Was that done on the 2021 projects?
Yep. So for each of the different corridors for the 2021 projects, we met with both. We met with all of the different neighborhood associations that those corridors go through. Also chatted with the BAC, PAC on that work and the council members as well.
Yeah,
I don't recall. Probably last spring.
I don't recall these. I appreciated getting the drawings up or the layouts up, and those never came before the BAC. And I think it would have been helpful if they had, particularly for pedestrian and bicycle improvements. I like the layouts that you have. I'll say I'm very disappointed with Monroe in that both the access to and across the to the Logan Park and beneath the two railroad passes didn't seem to get addressed, and those are two very dangerous sections. Thank you. Done.
Okay. I see a hand, but I cannot see who it is. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, this is Adrienne Bachheim. I had a question.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a general question about how to read these drawings. I see in some of them, like for example, the Dowling, there are certain intersections where they have bump outs only on certain corners. And I'm just curious, are those bump outs going in both directions across the intersection, or are they just going in one direction? Or does it vary?
It might be dependent on the actual intersection that you're looking at. I will say we are continuing to learn about how to represent these accurately and be more clear in our graphics here. So apologies if that's not clear. Is there a specific intersection you're wondering about?
Just for example, like in is it Dowling and like Girard or DuPont?
Christian, do you know off the top of your head? I know this is one that you were working on. Generally speaking, the bump outs along Dowling, whether or not they go into Dowling and the side streets both.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Adrian. So I managed the corridor for Dowling for 2021. Without seeing the drawing up in front of me, I can't recall, but Dowling is a little unique in which we have bike lanes that alternate on and off of the curb. So we also have some bus stops. So at certain locations, we are able to do a bump out that wraps the full corner. So that would mean like Dowling and then the side street. Other times we're able to just do a bump out, maybe either just on the side street rather than on Dowling. And oftentimes when that's occurring, that's typically because there's a bus stop there or the bike lane is adjacent to the curb, which wouldn't allow us to extend that bump out around the corner. And I think that might be what you're seeing at those locations that you mentioned.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks for that explanation.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Yeah, it's Jesse Thornton. One question I had, I didn't necessarily see anything about signal phasing within any of the Vision Zero improvements, and I don't know if that's not just because they're not like hard infrastructural items, but I know that there's different things you can do with signal phasing, like leading pedestrian intervals or legging protected lefts that can help improve ped and bike safety. So I don't know if you'd be able to answer that, but would you all be looking at signal phasing too as part of these Vision Zero corridors?
Yeah, so we've been having kind of a bigger conversation around LPI, the leading pedestrian interval, and implementing those along these corridors as well as other corridors across the city. So that's a bigger conversation that is happening, but I believe has yet to actually be implemented along these corridors.
Can I ask, what is single phasing?
Like the traffic signal phasing, the red lights, green lights, and then when you get like the walk signal and the don't walk signal and that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what were you looking at from us? Are we needing a resolution from us? What are you looking for?
This is really just to provide an overview of what's to come. We will likely be back with one or more of the corridors since there's a bit more kind of potential striping changes with those. So really this is just to provide an update to you all. And if people have any questions or specific comments about any of the corridors, just feel free to reach out and happy to have a conversation about it.
Great. Philip is our last one. If you can grab that question.
Quick, sure. Just quick question. Is there an annual Vision Zero report that reports on, we assume, decreased injuries after these interventions are made?
I believe there is an annual report for Vision Zero. I am not, you're not 100% specific to like the Vision Zero capital projects. I think it's more big picture, like how we're doing with the Vision Zero action plan. I can talk with our staff member that would lead that and provide a response back to have Chris email back out to all of you members in the BAC.
Yeah, it seems like every year that new projects are proposed, it would be super useful to look back a year or two and report on how those improvements have done, and give us a sense. I think also intersection by intersection, which specific interventions are most physical interventions are most effective. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks for that. The last thing, I know we're short on time. I just want to say, if you're interested in using the interactive map, it is linked on the project webpage. and just allows you to come on here and you can see other comments. Sorry, my computer is being a bit slow here. You can see other comments that people have made, and click right here on the map on any of the high injury streets to add a comment. And so we will use this, it's mostly a data-driven approach, but we'll be looking to this as we plan out the corridors. So thank you all so much. Feel free to reach out. And if you do not have my contact information, Chris should have it.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks again. All right. Philip's hand is still up. Philip, you still have a question?
Oh, sorry. No, I do not. Oops, it's down.
Okay.
Thanks, Marty.
Let's move on to the First Avenue South reconstruction is at 0%. Katie and Ahmed, are you here?
Yeah, hi, this is Katie White with City of Minneapolis Public Works. Ahmed, I don't know, is here today.
Okay, well, anytime you're ready. And we are kind of limited on time, so get us the big.
Yep, sure thing. Can you hear me okay? The audio went out for a second there.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, terrific, thanks. I am the transportation planner leading the reconstruction of First Avenue South. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see the full, even more, it's the full extent of this project. So First Avenue South here on the south end, this is Lake Street. So the Lake Street Kmart is here in the northwest corner of Lake and First Avenue South. This is the Midtown Greenway right here. And then this is Franklin Avenue in the middle, and the extent of the project ends at Grant Street in downtown by the convention center here. We're looking at one long corridor. This is about 1.5 miles long, and this is being broken up into 2 construction years. So the green segment from Lake Street to Franklin Avenue is set to be reconstructed in 2024, and the blue segment from Franklin Avenue to Grant Street is set to be reconstructed in 2025. Obviously, some major projects happening along this corridor over the next few years that we want to be aware of. The Kmart project here, the reconnection of Nicollet from north to south is going to be a big conversation. We are also including the reconstruction of the First Avenue South Midtown Greenway Bridge in our project for reconstructing the street as well. Oftentimes, bridges are standalone projects from the roads itself, but in this case, we have bundled them together, so the entire bridge will be reconstructed here. Also, I want to point out Franklin Avenue. The county owns this segment of Franklin, and the county will be reconstructing Franklin through here in 2025. So it's going to be a big coordination effort between the city and the county. In an interesting coincidence, one of the consultants on our First Avenue South project is also one of the consultants on the Franklin Avenue project. So it's going to be good coordination there. So we're looking at upgrading the entire street. A lot of you have been around before and know that our reconstruction projects involve tearing up all of the asphalt and concrete and replacing all of it. What's interesting about this project is that, for those of you who are aware, a few years ago we did a study called the Whittier-Lyndale Bikeway Project, and it was implemented last year in 2021. And for First Avenue South, that meant paint and bollard treatment to act as an interim condition until we could bridge over to the full reconstruction in 2024 and 2025. So right now out today, this is a written description of what the street looks like. And there's some diagrams in the one pager that Chris attached to the agenda about what this looks like. But for the most part, what we did last year in 2021 was put in a 2-way protected bikeway with paint and bollards on the west side of the street. And what we're going to be doing through the reconstruction of this road is to make that permanent. We're going to put the 2-way bicycle facility behind the curb on the west side of the street and make it official and more permanent and more safe than just a paint and bollard treatment. So the one pager that Chris included shows the different segments of the corridor. You know, not all, First Avenue looks a little different depending on where you are on the corridor. But for the most part, what we've done is put the 2-way bike facility on the west side of the street. So we have some old information here from 2017, which is well before the bikeway went in, but pretty high pedestrian and bicycle users on this corridor. And we've got a lot of speeding going on too. One of the other changes that was made last year in the temporary condition was to change the car travel to one way, one lane northbound. And we're going to be keeping that also through the redesign. So it's a pretty big change for car travel in the area too. We are kicking off engagement right now. The timing of this meeting, I wanted to come sooner rather than in March. So I'll have Chris send out the information when we have it. We're targeting a virtual open house probably the week of February 28th or maybe March 1st or March 3rd, I think are the dates that we're looking at. And so we'll be doing an online open house, but we're also going to be deploying sort of a virtual walking tour where folks we recommend who are in the neighborhood will see a sign, use a QR code or go to a URL and fill out a brief survey about the intersection and what people want to see on the corridor. And so we don't have that link for you today. Again, I wanted to get to you sooner and have you thinking about this project sooner. But this is a resource that we'll be sending out through Chris and those. And once we've got the date of the virtual open house and once we have the link to the resources for you to share your opinions on this project. So that's my very short spiel. I'd like to spend more time answering questions about this potential reconstruct if folks have them. I'll scroll back up to the map too.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? I know I'm always excited when there's something new being planned, you know, I'm trying to visualize it. Aaron.
Hey, yeah. Thanks, Katie, for this. This is an exciting project. As a regular user of the Whittier-Wendale Bikeway as it stands now, this will be a huge improvement. I have a couple questions. One is about the you said, I think you may have answered this already just in your presentation behind the curb line you were saying the bikeway would be. Does that mean it'd be at sidewalk level?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I figured. The other one I had is this is farther north, obviously, than I live and where I would get onto the Whittier-Wendale Bikeway, but I'm curious if as part of this reconstruction, the northbound bike lane on First Avenue could become protected also.
Between Frank and Lake and 28th.
Yes, yeah. So residents in that area could get to that bikeway without needing to do some sort of weird jog just to go north.
Yes, we are talking about putting the one-way northbound bike facility that is on the east side of the street between Lake and 28th. We're talking about putting that at sidewalk height as well. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Janice.
Yeah, I'm looking at the existing conditions and I'm thinking about the area just north of Franklin. And current condition has parking on both sides with one car lane, is that right?
Yes, we have a
because of the two-way bike
bay.
lane. Yeah, and what are you proposing for that section? Are you keeping parking on both sides?
I think that's we haven't settled that yet. We're going to see what the designs look like. I think another recurring theme that folks say in their presentations to this group and other groups is a requirement for green stormwater infrastructure. And so we can have less space dedicated to concrete and asphalt now than we used to be able to have on our projects. And so I'm not sure how much parking will remain. It's too soon to tell on that segment.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I've actually driven that section in a car and it feels very narrow. On the other hand, that's because the parking is used a lot. So
yes,
I just wonder what the plan is.
And until, I don't know when the last time you drove on that, part of the reason I think it felt very narrow is because there was a snow issue, which they resolved last week.
No, before snow. Before snow.
Oh, it was before snow. Okay. Yeah, it's a little narrow there. I agree. It's definitely, I love those old apartment buildings. It definitely reflects the older character when we had different street users. And it feels tighter now with the parking on both sides and one lane of travel. I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet. I'm not sure if you have a preference. I mean, what you would like to see or what would make it feel less tight or narrow, or maybe you like it feeling tight in there.
I don't know. I mean, reducing the parking would make it feel less narrow for driving, but I'm not sure that's a good thing. And I don't know what the people who park there would do.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? When will you be back to see us? Oh, wait, Philip. Philip?
Thank you, Marty. How can I not ask the question about parking? So I noticed this 80% plus parking utilization rate. I can't remember. I don't think there are any meters. Have you looked at meters along the route? And have you looked at availability of parking on side streets and number of spaces that might be eliminated?
Yeah, there was a parking study done before the temporary condition went in, so that was a couple of years ago now, and we aren't planning on doing another one because conditions haven't changed too much, I don't think. I'm not sure what triggers the threshold for a meter conversation. I did have a conversation with our on-street parking manager a couple of weeks ago, and this is not a critical parking area, and it's not, and I think folks know that people use the parking here, but it's not otherwise targeted as an area of concern, but we know the parking gets used.
I mean, yeah, I mean, 80% is fine. If it were, 110%, then you really need to think about meters. And I presume there's some sort of city threshold that I don't know about, but.
Right, I don't know it either.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. When will we be seeing you again?
Well, after the snow is gone, hopefully before June. I'll be here again before June to show some concepts. What's really nice about this is because there was this temporary condition that went in and because the BAC at the time put back, we can actually sort of accelerate this first planning phase and get a concept out for public comment and review faster because we know so many things. Like we know the bikeway is going to be on the west side of the street. We know it's going to be 2 ways. And so what is it, February? Maybe by April, I'll be back.
Okay.
To get actions on our first pass.
That's excellent. Thank you for your presentation. Like I said, I'm always looking forward to seeing it. You hear, but to actually see it progress, it's just awesome. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's move on. I'm loving these presentations. We are at the 26th Avenue North to Olson Park Trail. Is Tyler here?
Hello, I am here.
Hello, Tyler.
I'm just going to share my screen.
Okay.
All right. Oh, shoot, where'd it go?
I wish I could help you, but I can't.
No, sorry, my fault. PowerPoint decided to disappear from me. There we go. Okay, now it looks like you can see it, right?
Yes, I can see it, yes.
Thank you, sorry about that. So yes, we're here to talk about 26th Avenue near the Overlook and the connection to Olson Park and West River Parkway. If I can get the slide to go. There we go. So I'm Tyler Pedersen, Design Project Manager over at the Minneapolis Park Board. I'm sure many of you know me just from being on the BAC, but I also do projects there. And on the horn here, we've got Greg Brown and Bill Smith helping out. Greg is the project manager for Kinley Horn. Bill Smith is with Beacon Associates, helping us out. So we went through introductions. We'll go through a little bit of background and goals, the project scope, some site photos. It's a pretty unique spot in the city right now. And then talk a little bit about real estate considerations. There's a couple properties that we need to kind of figure out before we can actually start building something. And then we have a little bit of info on the planning and design considerations, looking at connections and trail experiences, also some floodplain and riverbank modifications. And then we've got just a real simple concept alignment image that we'll go and look at. So the spot that we're looking at here is over in North Minneapolis. And it is kind of at the terminus, it is at the terminus of 26th Avenue Bikeway. That's the east-west segment. Oh, shoot, sorry. That's the east-west street here in pink. And then we have the trail along West River Road, along the river. And then there's about a 1,000-foot trail gap here, and we want to fill that. The project builds from the Above the Falls master plan, so it is in there. That's what enabled us to seek out the funding. We've got about $3 million lined up for the project. We want to expand the regional trail system along the river. We want to connect to new neighborhoods that we are not really connected to very well right now. And, expand recreation. North Minneapolis does have a riverfront. It's kind of disconnected now, and we want to reconnect it. Let's see. So we've got a number of plans that this has been kind of board approved in, if you will, that just show it in the graphics. We don't have to really dive deep into these, but just know that this has been planned for quite some time. The scope of the project, right now we're really just talking to people. We're doing public engagement, partner outreach, and then soon we'll be kind of jumping more into concept development and refinement. We've got a lot of data to collect. We have a survey for the site, a topographic survey for the site, but we'll likely need more information on soils and such like that. And then we're in conversations with both BNSF and Continental Cement. Both of those groups or organizations or companies are landowners, which we will need to move through with this trail. And so once that information is really coalesced, we start to actually prepare the construction documents later this year, and construction will begin. That might need to say 2023, not 2024. I think we want to end by June of 2024. So here's a few photos. So we got Old Olson Park. On this map, north is to the right. We have the terminus of West River Parkway and the railroad bridge. And then this image is just number one here, looking sort of north along the river. It's a really beautiful spot. And there's also, beauties in the eye of the beholder here, but I think most of us would agree that there's some beauty in some of the steel structures and some of the structures of the bridge itself. And this is just an image of one of the kind of the pass-throughs underneath the railroad bridge. This is kind of the landscape that's down there right now. You can walk through there. There's really kind of nice spaces down there. There's a flat area on the south side of the bridge, which we want to kind of utilize a little bit and create an amenity of, rather than just pass through the space. Here's us hanging out underneath the bridge, just looking at the structure of it, the piers holding the bridge up. and just kind of the general nature of kind of how it feels down there. And it's a pretty cool experience. And then looking north from the bridge is probably our hardest spot to get through. There's pretty much river and then bluff and then the bluff top. You can see kind of from the topography here on the aerial photo. It is a very steep bluff down to the river. So there's some engineering that we need to figure out. So the real estate considerations, we need to work with BNSF to get a license to go under that bridge. We can't just kind of sneak it under without telling them. We gotta get a license for it. So we're working on that. We've had a couple conversations with them already. And then there's private property between the bridge and the 26th Avenue overlook. On the aerial photo, this is all continental cement. So we'll be working with them to actually create an easement or acquire that property to move through it. So with the planning and design, there's several considerations that we just need to take into consideration. Greg, would you mind running through these real quick and then jump over to the next slide, which will be the diagram?
Sure. Yeah, so we really want to look at the trail design as not just a trail, but kind of the experience. It does go through a lot of interesting topography and places, the bridge itself underneath and then coming back up, and it makes that real critical connection for the north side 26th Avenue Trail. So to the extent we can incorporate it into the project, things like fishing, connecting to the river, walking to the river, touching the water, just in the kind of the natural feel that you get along the Mississippi throughout the city. This area is really no different. We're looking at maybe incorporating a launch for kayaks or canoes at some location here within kind of the footprint of the project. So those are all things that are going to be in our consciousness as we look at the alignments of trails and maybe vistas as you're moving along the trail from north to south or south to north, et cetera. We also want this to appear as really a seamless, or function, I should say, as a seamless extension of the trail. You know, the city, of course, as this group knows, has a fantastic riverfront trail system. It's continuous for miles and miles. So we want this extension of 1,000 feet to really be continuous from what exists to the south. And in addition to that, we know it's going to continue north of 26 and tie into Upper Harbor and basically go to the city limits and beyond. So we want the design to kind of emulate that and not just be kind of getting from A to B, because that happens to be where we're at today. Obviously, we want to look at slopes to be accessible and envision that we can achieve that less than 5% profile. So that's certainly a big goal. And to the extent we can have a separate bike and ped trail, we'll be exploring that, and we're kind of cautiously optimistic that a lot of this could be separate, very much like the system to the south through the city. So again, we want this to appear or to function much like the rest of the riverfront trail system. So the areas that we do disturb, we'll restore. We'll kind of look at that landscape that's out there and create new or embellished landscape that's respectful of the riverfront and the natural ecology of the river bluff. So the next slide kind of just shows a little bit of a plan view of what we're, kind of where we're at and what we're envisioning. So the orange trail, if you will, around Olson Park is essentially the existing loop trail. That's also the terminus of the existing trail systems. It's the terminus of the parkway as well as the trail today. So the blue dash represents the existing bike trail to the south. The green dash represents the existing walking trail. So this exhibit kind of shows along the lines of what I mentioned. We'd like to have, those two functions remain as separate bike and ped. As we get to the bridge itself, you'll see kind of crossing the bridge, things get tight. We're just in the beginning phases, so we haven't, determined if we can keep those separate or if they need to be merged up once we get under the bridge. And things stay relatively tight through the Continental Cement parcel there when we tie into the 26th Avenue bikeway system and the new overlook that was just opened last summer. Looking at, and this exhibit shows the bike trail and the walking trail going into the western port, or going under rather, the western portal of the bridge. There's essentially two portals that are options, and Tyler had walked through some of the images. The eastern portal is more riverward. It's a little bit lower in topography, but it has some of the issues with that would be a trail at that grade would be flooded, when high water comes, or we would build a structure or need a structure, and that has some ramifications with it relative to cost and working with the railroad, et cetera. So we'll be looking at that, but we're thinking if we can go in the western portal, as we're showing here, we might be able to limit any structure needs and reduce any filling in the floodplain. And but it's just some things that are in our consciousness here as we get started. And I think Bill will talk a little bit about our thoughts relative to public engagement outreach in the early phases of the project. Oh, I think you're muted, Bill.
Sorry about that. We are interested in getting out and talking to the public directly and importantly to the neighborhood organizations, Hawthorne, and you'll recall it was Hawthorne and Jordan that were who were the main drivers behind the development of the 26th Avenue Bikeway. And so we want to make sure that we're getting input from them. Then the West Broadway Business and Area Coalition. If you're familiar with the organization, you know that it includes, the neighborhood organizations in North Minneapolis, as well as businesses along Broadway and the businesses that are adjacent to the river. So we think this is a good way to get input from those businesses that might be impacted. We're also looking at the Major Taylor Bicycling Club. As you know, that's an predominantly African-American bicycle club in the Twin Cities, Great Northern Greenway Coalition. And we really wanted to find out from you today if there are other organizations who you feel we ought to be talking to. If you can make those kinds of suggestions to us. We've got a kickoff meeting coming up, and I think Tyler will be talking about that in the next slide. So before we end today, I'd like to just get some input from you to get some ideas as to who else we ought to be talking to for our public engagement. Tyler?
Yeah, so thank you, Greg and Bill. Appreciate that. So the last slide here, just some next steps. We've made some initial contact at those neighborhoods a few months ago. Park Board staff, myself, and a few other folks just briefly met with them during their regular meetings and said hello and introduced them to the project. So now we're kind of getting more deeper into the public engagement. We're talking to the BAC and the PAC, and then we're holding our first virtual public meeting on February 24th. Information on that will go out this Friday. And then we start to develop the design and then review that design, those concept alternatives with the public and partners and you all. And then we take that, refine it again, and bring it to the Board of Commissioners for concept approval. And beyond that is a lot of design work. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, Marty had to leave, and so I'm taking over for trying to the rest of the meeting. So thank you. That was a great presentation. Are there any questions, comments? So I see Aaron.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I don't have anything groundbreaking, but I'm just really excited to see this trail gap being filled. I've dead-ended at that park so many times, or even before that, and so the ability to actually connect to something else, but also to bring, like, I've been kind of studying the 26th Avenue bikeway map since I don't live in North Minneapolis, I'm in South Minneapolis, so I haven't used 26th Avenue bikeway, but just looking at it and thinking of how, like, not only does that bikeway connect then to this overlook in the park structure there, it'll also give people along 26th or who might use that the ability to get downtown in a safe, comfortable, and scenic way. And so for that, I'm really excited. So thank you all and everyone else involved.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Aaron. You know, you're right on. This is a huge connection. It's one of the only east-west, or 26th Avenue is the only east-west off-street bike facility really in North Minneapolis, unless you go all the way up to Shingle Creek or Weber, or all the way down to Cedar Avenue or Cedar Trail. And so having this connection, it shoots you right to downtown, and then vice versa, you go downtown to North Minneapolis.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me add too, Aaron, that that 26th Avenue bikeway is adjacent to, I believe, 2 or 3 elementary schools. And being able then to have access to the overlook and the Olson Trail could even be like an enhanced educational experience for children who could be getting interested in river ecology, et cetera. So this really does have a lot of purposes that can be fulfilled.
Totally.
Phil?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Well, Bill, I'm just responding to your comment about like who else, who other stakeholders, and though I know it's incredibly difficult to work with railroads, you know, I've had some good experience with the Soo Line, and so I was thinking of BNSF, the railroad, as being invited to be a stakeholder in what, and jumping off of Aaron's comment, what will be this just beautiful connection, pause point to reflect on both sort of industrial archaeology and ecology. And, you know, sometimes you can find someone in the railroad bureaucracies who might be interested in money sharing, history, archaeology, displays. I don't know. So that's sort of what came to me. I mean, you've got this major river crossing. So just a suggestion, but I know it can be incredibly hard to even get railroad people to answer the phone, but it does happen sometimes. So
sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll stick my hand up quickly. You know, this is a great project, and I'm really excited about developing that lower area underneath the bridge, and that sort of lowland area as access to something off the trail like you've been talking about. And I just wanted to comment to, although it's out of the scope of this project, it's an important thing for the BAC and the city and the park board to recognize that really after you leave Fairview Park and head to the river, you're going through a very industrial area that's very unfriendly and quite frankly unsafe in just the amount of traffic. And it would be a great thing to push both the city and the park board to think about that stretch between actually over the bridge, over the overpass, all the way past Washington, past Second, and past all the industry that gets to the river overlook at the end. You know, the boulevards down there have not been maintained very well. It looks like a natural grass structure, but it's kind of just weeds. And even today, I was down at the river overlook, and you can't access it because of the snowbanks, and it's never been shoveled back there. I know that's not your thing at this moment, but if we're going to make this open for the public, we've got to kind of realize that that's something you might want to get together rather than just something else. The other thing I just wanted to mention that over in Olson Park and that whole stretch of West River Road, both the bike and the what we call the bike facility, which is actually a multi-use trail, and the pedestrian facility are used everybody uses both of them. It depends if you know, runners use it for a loop. People that feel uncomfortable being down by the river, which is a little more secluded, use the route towards the road, and bicyclists that want to see the river go down the pedestrian trail. So it's not, I've never seen it being a problem, but we just need to realize that these vacated areas get that common use. And lastly, I just wanted to mention to Bill something that I have tried to have been working on, and COVID really put a blank in the whole deal, was to reach out to the faith communities along 26th. In that, you know, you've got I think there's 4 or 5 of them, and they do have some kind of, you know, pastoral get together. I don't know how active they are, but it might be a group to hook up to, as well as I'm not sure what's going on in Nellie Stone Johnson with the pandemic, but their PTO or, you know, might be a great group for you to just bounce these ideas of how to get kids down to the river.
Good idea. Thank you.
That's it. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for letting us present, and thank you for the feedback on this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you much. All right, we've got one more project upcoming, and that is the Richard Green Central Safe Routes to School at 0% with Christian Zimmerman and Jasna Hadzik-Stanek from Public Works. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Christian Zimmerman. I'm an associate transportation planner with Minneapolis Public Works. I'm also joined by colleague Jasna Hadzik-Stanek, who's also managing this project. This is the Green Central Safe Routes to School, just 0% at this point. Little overview for this evening, some project introduction, existing policies and plans, our existing conditions, the Green Central Safe Routes to School plan that was developed in 2021, and then just our next steps and schedule. So this was selected as Safe Routes to School focus area by the city through a data-driven process that focused on school demographics, potential users, and known pedestrian safety issues. The overall goal of Safe Routes to School projects such as this, the main focus here is to make it easier to walk and bike to school. With that, you know, to meet that overall goal, we also need to improve the traffic safety for people walking and biking, you know, help improve the bike network and the connectivity. This particular project, we have a couple schools in the area, 4 of them. We also have a couple parks. Major park of this one is Powderhorn. We also need to look at addressing traffic safety at documented high injury street intersections. It's going to include Park, Portland, 31st, and Lake Street. And lastly, just enhancing the comfort and the predictability for all of our different users. So this here is a map just kind of showing the project area. You'll see that Green Central Elementary is down here where my mouse is, kind of in this lower corner. And then you'll see that there's 2 colors to this map. There's an orange and a blue. This route is to utilize 34th Street, from Green Elementary over to 10th Avenue, kind of dead ends there at Powderhorn Park. And then you'll notice that there's two routes that move north, those being 10th Avenue and 11th Avenue. So through this process, we'll be engaging with the community and using our internal tools to kind of figure out what's the best route for this project, whether that's 10th or 11th. 10th Avenue would utilize, 10th Avenue only. 11th would utilize a route through Powderhorn Park and then transition to the roadway. Both of these would have the same endpoint, which would be just north of the Midtown Greenway. 28th Street Bikeway is where it would tie in. There's a couple other project characteristics that you'll notice here. Where this project would overlap, there's existing condition of the Midtown Greenway. There's the future D line that's being constructed right now on Chicago. There's high frequency bus route on 4th. And there's also the future B line BRT for Lake Street. So a lot of different ways in which this project would interact with existing and future transportation. So this is a Safe Routes to School map from 2014. Something that you'll notice here is the neighborhood walking route of 34th Street, and then the trail walking route through Powderhorn Park, and then picks up again as a neighborhood walking route on 11th Avenue heading north. This map it's a little older from 2014. There is some talks of updating this map. So some of these routes do have the potential of changing. So we want to use this as something to help us inform and guide our process, but still understanding that these pieces can shift over time. And then here, this is our All Ages and Abilities Network, introduced with our Transportation Action Plan, so much newer. The star indicates the school location, and then this brighter kind of blue line that you see. So that's 34th, and then you can see that 10th Avenue is identified in the All Ages and Abilities Network as a future near-term low-stress bikeway. So our reported crashes, the top chart that you see here, this is 11th Avenue. That's between 28th and Powderhorn Park. That's going to be outlined here in the purple line. So we have relatively low reported crashes from pedestrians and bicyclists, 1 pedestrian and 3 bicyclists over a 10-year time frame from 2011 to 2021. The percent with crash injuries is pretty high, with 100% for the pedestrian, 67% for the bicyclist. We do have 74 motor vehicle crashes, with only 14% of those resulting in injuries. So kind of seeing, our most vulnerable road users, with the higher percent crashes with injuries. And then 10th Avenue, this is between 28th and 34th, outlined in the orange line. A little bit higher here. So we have 13 pedestrian crashes, resulting still in a pretty high rate of injury at 92%. A little bit more on the bicycle route with 5, resulting in 80%. Significantly more vehicle crashes at 112, resulting in 21% with injuries. And then the blue line that runs east-west is 34th Street. That runs between Clinton and 10th Avenue. Clinton kind of splits the mid-block of Green Central. So pedestrian-wise, there's 1 reported crash and then 2 bicycle crashes. So those 3 all reported injuries, and then motor vehicles 106 with 20% reporting injuries. So the Richard Green Park Elementary Safe Routes to School plan, it is a vision of the plan that for walking and biking to school is safe, comfortable, and fun for all students. The plan includes a variety of strategies around the 6 E's. Those are equity, engineering, education, encouragement, engagement, and evaluation. Green Central has already Green Central already has several education and encouragement activities, which are listed here, including a bike train. So really what this is about is just providing that safer environment for them in order to apply. So I will note, when Yasna and I were in person and had done a site visit here, they were, had a program at the school, and they were teaching kids how to ride bikes. So very active at the school here. So this is a map taken out of Green Central Safe Routes to School plan. This is their infrastructure recommendations. So I'll be focusing on letters A through G here. This is focusing on 34th. So letter A is just access across 35W. Their goal is to just have a low stress connection across a major barrier, indicating I-35. Just to increase that additional neighborhood and biking field trip destinations. B is the intersection of 34th and Clinton. This is an area in which they would like to have improved access to school for students who live north of the campus. Letter C is essentially talking about 34th Street and 10th Avenue together. They are recommending to formalize and enhance the low stress connection to school for students who live north and east of campus. D, E, F, and G are very similar in points. They are talking about the intersections in the roadways of Portland Avenue and then also Park Avenue. Their goals are to increase the comfort and safety for pedestrians and bicyclists traveling through the intersection while reducing speeding and increasing driver yielding behavior. Our next steps in our schedule. Right now, we're in the technical analysis portion of this project. We'll be conducting a speed study as when weather permits, so a little later on in the year. Currently, right now, this week, we are performing a parking study for all three corridors. So we're looking at 34th, 10th, and 11th. We do have quite a bit of partner agency coordination with this project. We're working with Hennepin County, and we're looking at Park and Portland Avenues with them, the Midtown Greenway, and then the Park Board. They are kicking off a separate project for Powderhorn Park improvements. So we're working with them, and then also, of course, the Minneapolis schools. So working with them on their Safe Routes to School plan that they just developed and released a few months ago. For community engagement, we'll be working on that, kicking that off here in the spring of 22. That'll run through at least this summer. And then we'll be getting into our concept development this summer through really the end of 2022. And we'll use that, kind of be developing those aspects and pieces as we go through community engagement, kind of using what we're hearing back from the community and from the school and the different stakeholders of, what is it that they need and what are their desires for this. So we'll use that to develop that concept. And then in 2023, the project will be with our city engineers just to draw up those detailed plans so they can be ready for construction in 2024. So we are 2 years out from construction, but we are on a fairly, quick moving timeline as we're really looking to get to that 30% concept development by the end of 2022. And that's all I have for you today. There is a project website that is active and you can check out. We'll be adding more information to that website as this project evolves and continues. My contact is on here, so is Yasna's, if you need to reach out or have any comments for us. With that, I'll open it up to comments and questions.
Aaron?
Hey, yeah, thank you. And thanks, Christian, for that. I had a quick question. So with the corridor being thought about, like 34th Street, for example, or 10th Avenue, are you picturing like an off-street bikeway type of thing or protected bikeway?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten into the design details of exactly, what these facilities are going to look like. We do have $2 million in funding as a federal project. So, we'll be using that funding and honestly, we'll probably have to look at this maybe on like a block by block or kind of area by area to determine what the appropriate conditions are for the bikeway. Some sections may need to shift to that curb level and get to off street, while other sections may be able to utilize maybe a calmer street or section where maybe it's something that's on street. So I think there's definitely going to be a combination of different treatments that we'll have to use, no matter if we use 10th or 11th.
Yeah, and one other quick question too. Well, I've got you. I'm looking at the map of Portland and Park, and I'm curious, I guess, if Hennepin County might be willing to allow there's some pretty gigantic bump out opportunities that would help shorten that crossing distance for kids. Like at 34th Street, you could, like, theoretically, you could bump it all the way out past the bikeway, and just make it so that the only car crossings are those two lanes of vehicle traffic, north-south on Parker, Portland. Is that something you think Hennepin County might be willing to allow?
So we're definitely in conversations with the county. They're aware of the project, and so we're definitely partnering with them to look at what are the different improvements we can make at those intersections. And the county is definitely wanting to help improve those, and in whatever way, shape, or form that will come through kind of our engagement and our concept design. So I would say everything is kind of on the board at this point for what those design aspects could be.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Bill Smith?
Sure. Christian, curious, what with, I know you're working with schools in South Minneapolis, but what are you finding in terms of getting to the school district and working with them? I'm just wondering if we might follow up on what Dan suggested and try to do some outreach for the schools in North Minneapolis along the 26th Avenue bikeway. So do you have any advice as to how to reach them? Are the PTAs active now, or what can you tell me?
Yeah, so we're fairly early on in this project, so we haven't gotten into the thick of our engagement yet, but we have been in coordination with the principal and also I forget what her title is, but we've been in engagement with kind of like their Safe Routes to School coordinator at the school for Green Central. So we've been outreaching with them, and I think we're going to definitely want to leverage those aspects within the school in those contexts, just to kind of reach out and determine what a good engagement plan looks like around that community. If that means going to a larger group within the MPS system, I think we're certainly open to that. We don't want to exclude anything at this point.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put my hand up, Dan Miller. So this is exciting, and I always I've dealt with some situations in Northeast where the 2014 Safe Routes to School routes sort of differentiate from the AAA network, and where we can, I think it's nice to be able to combine them if it makes sense. And I think that 10th Street here is part of the South Side Greenway that was proposed. We've talked about this intersection and basically that Lake Street connection there. There's a dead end there, but I really see some advantages of being able to hook up to the Midtown Greenway, and I think most of your fatalities or the traffic stuff probably happen at that intersection there. But being if we could actually have a real bikeway that you could, whether it's protected or a shared use path, I think it'd be fantastic to be able to extend this section going down there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we've got Cadence.
Yeah, so I am excited to see this project. I live in the attendance boundary. This is where my neighbor kids go. And I also lived on the other side of 34th, like just a block away from there. So I've seen the infrastructure changes there for the bidirectional segment of 28th Street bikeway to eventually connect. And having used 10th Street quite a bit, I think that there's a lot of property owner stakeholders there that you'll need to directly engage with. The section, the east side of the block that's immediately north of the Sepro green space entry, the parking there is really dicey, and there's almost always somebody who is parking in front of the trail connection. It's kind of hard to get there, especially in winter, because there's a perception that people aren't biking. So you might just need to do a bit more hands-on like door knocking with those folks. Additionally, some of the sight lines are not super great. When you're coming down, there's the street, that section of 29th that isn't super great. And then lastly, like really coordinating with like the property owners and like the parking garage there for Midtown Global Market. Oftentimes, like when I'm biking or walking through there, like I feel, even though it's supposed to be like safe and calm and wide, people don't drive around me very safely. And so I would be a little bit concerned with any type of on-street facility there for youth, especially, it has this perception of being like a slower speed, calmer stretch. But like my experience is that people still drive pretty aggressively around me on this, what's supposed to be kind of a calmer street. So those are just like some anecdotal experiences on this particular section, but I'm excited for it to be considered for improvements, definitely.
Thank you. And, I think that's something that we've recognized is the activity of just, around Lake Street is much busier. There's a lot of, people coming in and out along those facilities, on 10th especially. So depending, if this alignment is 10th or 11th, special care and attention is definitely going to have to go into the design, north of Lake Street, kind of in between Lake and 29th, just because of, everything that's occurring there. So
I have one quick follow-up question. With respect to the Lake Street crossing, what type of intersection possibilities there might be? Could we see something like a protected intersection there? It's a little dicey crossing on foot even. And it's a very busy intersection with people trying to get to that parking garage east of the market.
Yeah, I think there's, very similar to the conversations around Park in Portland. All design options will be on the table as we approach, especially these high injury streets. For sure that those will be a big talking point through this, and design considerations will be heavy at those intersections to make sure that we're providing that safe crossing.
Thank you. Oh, Dan, you're on mute if you're talking. Yeah.
Thank you. I see no more hands up. Thank you, Christian, for a great presentation. This is an exciting project, and we'll look forward to seeing you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll be coming back in about
Yeah, we'll come back closer to 30%, so it'll probably be a ways off before we're back. But yep, we'll bring back when we have a design recommendation.
I think it'd be interesting perhaps to consider 15%, just so we might be able to see what you're kind of coming up with to maybe help out, maybe offer some input there.
Yeah, I was thinking that this might be one of those that could be a good idea for this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All righty, so that's all our presentations. We're at the announcement phase. Hearing once, hearing twice. This was a great meeting. I tell you, we really need to thank both staff and the presenters for being able to offer some really, really good information on the agenda. And again, I can just encourage everybody to be able to read up ahead of time. It really helps me, at least, to take a look at that stuff. So there we go. I think we're done.
Nice, Dan. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, one last thing I might say is that we're still working on the CIP. Help me out, Chris. What do we call it? CIP recommendations, and that exists as a Google form, and it might be something that if you're interested in reading it ahead of the full BAC meeting and commenting on, maybe you could contact Chris and he can send you the link to it. There you go.
Yeah. Appreciate that prompt.
Good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.